There was a sound that every teenager in America knew by heart, and it wasn't a song. It was the click of a car door shutting, the turn of a key, and then that half-second of silence before the radio or the tape deck came alive and the world outside the windshield suddenly had a soundtrack. For decades, before playlists lived in your pocket and before Bluetooth could beam a song from your hand to your speakers without you lifting a finger, the car was the one place a teenager owned completely. Not the bedroom, where parents could knock. Not the kitchen, where the radio played whatever mom or dad wanted. The car was different. The car was yours, and so was everything that came out of its speakers. But that freedom came with a catch that nobody under the age of 35 today would ever understand. Managing your music was work. Real, physical, sometimes heartbreaking work. Let's start back in the 70s, when the 8-track was king of the dashboard. If you've never held one, imagine a plastic cartridge about the size of a paperback novel, thick and clunky, with a continuous loop of tape inside that played 4 programs on a rotation, switching automatically with an audible thunk right in the middle of a song. That thunk became part of the listening experience itself. You'd be right in the emotional peak of a guitar solo and the machine would just cut it off, shift tracks, and pick up somewhere else entirely. Nobody complained, because nobody knew any different. That was just how music worked in a car, but the real trouble came when the cassette tape took over in the early 80s, promising something better, smaller cartridges, better sound, and the magical ability to record your own music at home and bring it with you. And it delivered on that promise, mostly. Until the day your favorite tape got eaten. If you drove in the 80s or early 90s, you know exactly what that sentence means, and you probably just felt your stomach drop a little reading it. The tape deck would jam, and when you hit eject, instead of your cassette sliding out clean, you'd pull out a tangled ribbon of magnetic tape, spooling out like brown spaghetti, twisted and creased in a dozen places. Your heart would sink. That tape had your whole summer on it. Every song you carefully recorded, every mix you made for a road trip or for the person you liked, mangled in an instant by a $50 car stereo. And here's the part that feels almost unbelievable now: you didn't throw the tape away. You fixed it. You pop open the glove box, dig around for a pencil, and stick it into one of the 2 spools inside the cassette. Then you turn it, slowly, carefully, winding the loose ribbon back into the shell by hand, praying you didn't stretch it or crease it any worse than it already was. It was a delicate, almost surgical process, done on the side of the road or in a parking lot, sometimes with friends huddled around offering unhelpful advice. And when you finally got it wound back in and popped it back into the deck, and it played, there was a genuine sense of triumph. You'd saved it. You'd earned that music all over again. Tapes that survived long enough usually ended up living under the passenger seat or crammed into the door pocket, in those bulky plastic cases that never quite stacked right. Every car had that pile. A jumble of cracked cases, some missing their little fold-out inserts, some with the artist's name written in ballpoint pen on a piece of masking tape because the original label had long since peeled off. Digging through that pile at a red light, one hand on the wheel, trying to find the right tape by feel alone, was its own kind of driving hazard that nobody talks about anymore. And then there was the mixtape, which wasn't just a way to enjoy music, it was a language. Making a mixtape meant sitting by the radio for hours, finger hovering over the record button on a boombox or a home stereo, waiting for your favorite song to come on. And when it finally did, you had this brief window of pure anxiety, because if you hit record even a second too late, you missed the opening notes. And if the DJ decided to talk over the intro, which they always seemed to do right when the song was building up, your whole recording was ruined and you had to wait for another chance, sometimes days later, for that song to come around again. But when you got it right, when you captured a song clean from the very first beat to the very last note, it felt like you'd accomplished something. String together enough of those perfect captures, in exactly the right order, building the right mood, and you had something powerful. A cruising mixtape for a Friday night with your friends. A tape made specifically for the person you had a crush on, where the song choices said things you were too nervous to say out loud yourself. Making a mixtape was an act of patience and also an act of vulnerability, because whoever you gave it to would know exactly how much time and thought had gone into it, song by song. Then the 90s arrived, and with them came the compact disc, and suddenly cassette tapes felt ancient overnight. CDs promised something the previous formats never could: skip to any track instantly, no more fast-forwarding through a tape trying to guess where your song started. And teenagers everywhere adapted quickly, which led to one of the most recognizable and, honestly, most dangerous accessories of the era, the CD binder. You know the one. A massive zippered case, sometimes holding 50, sometimes 100 discs, each one slotted into its own thin plastic sleeve with the little half-circle cut out so you could see the label without taking it out. That binder lived in the car permanently, usually in the back seat or wedged between the front seats, an entire music collection condensed into something the size of a phone book. And it worked beautifully, right up until you were driving down the highway and decided you wanted to change the song. Because flipping through 100 discs while doing 65 miles an hour is not something anyone should have done, and yet almost everyone who owned one of these binders did it anyway. One hand on the wheel, one hand flipping plastic pages, eyes darting between the road and the little labels, trying to find that one album buried somewhere in the middle. It's a small miracle more of us didn't end up in a ditch because of it. And then there was the heartbreak. You'd finally find the CD you wanted, pull it from its sleeve, and notice it. A scratch, right across the surface, deep enough to catch the light at an angle. You'd pop it in anyway, hoping for the best, and the moment would come. The song would start, and then it would stutter, catching on that scratch, skipping and repeating the same half-second of sound over and over, glitching out right in the middle of the chorus you loved most. Sometimes you could nurse a scratch disc back to usability with toothpaste and a soft cloth, rubbing in slow circles and rinsing it off, an old trick passed down from an older sibling or a friend who swore it worked. Sometimes nothing could save it, and you just had to accept that your favorite song now came with a glitch built permanently into it, a scar you learned to work around. Looking back, none of this sounds convenient. It sounds like a small daily obstacle course, one that required patience, a steady hand, and sometimes a pencil kept specifically for tape emergencies. But that difficulty was the point, even if nobody realized it at the time. Every mixtape took hours to make. Every CD binder took real effort to organize and even more effort to safely flip through. The music you had in your car was music you had fought for, in some small way, and that made it feel like it belonged to you in a way that's hard to describe to anyone who grew up with a phone that holds every song ever recorded, ready instantly, no waiting, no risk, no ruined tape unraveling in your hands. Today, changing a song means a glance and a tap. Sometimes not even that, just a voice command tossed into the air while your eyes never leave the road. It's safer, certainly. It's more convenient in every measurable way. But something quieter got lost along with all that hassle. The patience of waiting for a DJ to play your song. The tiny triumph of saving a tape with a pencil. The nervous energy of handing someone a mixtape and waiting to see if they understood what you were trying to say with it. That effort used to be woven into the music itself, and somewhere between the cassette and the cloud, it quietly disappeared, taking with it a whole ritual of teenage life that an entire generation lived through and the next generation will simply never know existed.